Hello and welcome back to the Extra Innings Baseball Show. I am your host, Logan Stump, and with me today, as always, is the man behind the healthcare insurance, Jordan Weekend.
Don't blame me for that. Yes, but I am here.
Not the nationwide healthcare plan, Jordan. Nobody wants to blame you for that. I'm talking about the fact that you work with a crazy group that is currently going through your busiest time of the year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like election of your different medical benefits that you want. So it's got to be awful.
It's kind of like if you were also a podcast host of, baseball in the middle of the playoffs, and how busy those people must be.
Right. So speaking of baseball podcasts, doing it in the middle of the MLB playoffs. Welcome back to the show. This is what episode is this? The ALCS, NLCS. I guess preview, intro, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, what do you call this episode? But right now we are full blown into the NL and ALCS, but we will get into that stuff a little later. I do want to go over a couple of headlines, Jordan, because quite a bit's happening around the league. It's not, I think October is the last month that you really see a lot happening where manager changes, GMs coming in, front office moves. But we also got probably some of the best news that I can remember for a very long time as far as baseball fans are concerned. And that is the MILB housing and player care, situation coming into play. The MLB is engaged in a multi-year, and this is from Jeff Passan. He is with ESPN, I believe, and he was the MLB released a statement yesterday that said MLB is engaged in a multi-year effort to modernize the minor league system and better assist players as they pursue their dreams to playing in the major leagues. In 2021, we increased the salaries of minor league players by 38 to 72%, depending on level, and significantly reduced travel requirements during the season. In addition, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of improvements to minor league ballparks around the country are already underway, including substantial renovations to player-facing facilities like locker rooms and training facilities. In mid-September, the owners discussed the issue of player housing and unanimously agreed to begin providing housing to certain minor league players. We are in the process of finalizing details of that policy, and it is expected to be announced and in place for the 2022 season. Jordan, what are your initial thoughts as this was being broken? I guess this was like last night, right?
Yeah.
October 17th.
Yeah, it was I think right after the game started, the first pitch. It was like really in the middle of the game, which was odd time to break the news, especially for like Jeff Passan, who you feel like is probably
very
watching the game right. While he's breaking the story. But my first thought was, finally, I never thought this was actually going to happen. So the fact that they are going to be going to be having housing, because for people that are not familiar, there's this huge housing crisis in minor leagues this year, where some of the teams were like begging for like donations almost for some of these players because they're sleeping like 8 people in a room or whatever because they can't afford anything because their salaries are so low. So it is interesting when it says here in the quote that in 2021 they increased salaries for minor leagues by 38 to 72% when they already are still making next to nothing. And now, of course, people are going to say, well, what about their bonuses that they sign and all that kind of stuff? We're talking, yes, the big prospects are going to have the bonuses. They're going to make the money, whatever. But when we're looking at, just your regular everyday AAA player that may never amount to a major leaguer, they still have to be able to play in a professional career and make money from it, because if all those, they have to make it worth it, right? If you have a minor leaguer that's a third baseman, AAA, never going to be anything, he's like 27 years old, they still have to make a salary off of it, because if all of those players were to quit minor league baseball, then your prospects have nobody to go up against. They have nobody to help them. You can't build a whole thing of prospects, because all these players are at one point prospects, right? They just may not always be like top tier prospects. But so you need that. And the fact that like when they travel or like when they were around here that they'd have like no actual housing is insane. And like sometimes I think, families would kind of let people in and stay. It's just pay them more. And while it's nice that they're giving them housing, this is still, if you pay them more, you don't have to give them housing, right? Mm-hmm. Because then they can afford their own housing. Right. And it's not like these billionaire owners can't afford it. It's not like we're asking you or me to pay these guys, right? Because we don't have any money. But we're asking people that have tons of money that'll spend, like $1 billion on absolutely nothing and charge you $10 for a soda at the stadium. They should be able to pay all their minor leaguers, or else maybe we shouldn't have minor leagues.
Right. Yeah. So
they have to unionize too. I do want to say unionize the minors, and this kind of stuff will start really falling off the wayside.
Right. I mean, you're talking about kind of those player unions that try to protect their players. And then I know in 2020, there was, and later on in this in Jeff's article, he wrote that, and so just so you can get an idea, like a ballpark, and no pun intended, of what these players make. And this was crazy for me to read, because I mean, it was like, this happened in 2020, so this happens the year COVID, right? The increase in pay took place in minor league. Now, this was when the minor leagues were kind of combined into that one transit camp, where you had players that were all in one facility just because it was a taxi squad, and you could kind of just send people there and back if they had COVID issues, which a lot of clubs used last year. But no, as it started to get kind of back to normal and some of these teams kind of came back to where they were, Jordan, 2020 rookies and short season players made $400 a week. Before 2020, they were making $290. In Class A, you make $500 instead of the $290. Before AA, $600 instead of the $350. And AAA players, this is like guys that will be used sparingly for their Major League Baseball team. They were making $700 past this year, and then they've got that. They were at like $502 before. And then AAA players, you can also make at least $14,000. That's not like, those are 25-year-olds, 26-year-olds, sometimes some 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds. Those are lifers that have made it that far. You're getting paid $14,000 a year, like a season. That is wild, because you play from I think it's from April up until, I want to say it's like September, their season. So, I mean, the rest of the time, you've got to find something new. I know some people were like, they were working retail jobs, or they're working like camps, or they're working in schools, or they're working, a lot of different places, waiting tables and stuff like that during the off, because they're while they're trying to perfect their craft and become somebody and make a livable wage, they're also having to they also have to worry about living, where they're going to go home at night, and if they were going to go home at night. And then in some of these cities, Jordan, and you know this from being up where a couple of your teams are, there's some really expensive areas. And if you play in the Northeast, you can't afford housing. Like, who do you live with at that point? Especially with that much money. I wouldn't even take on a roommate that made $290 or whatever it was a week before 2020. Like, there's just
there's times where, I make more than $14,000 now, and it's still a struggle. It's not like, we're all like, having a great time over here. So the fact that, and what you have to think about, again, like I said, is some of these people, like you mentioned as well, are, in their mid-20s, early 30s, they're lifers that have absolutely, they're surviving off the dream. They're surviving off, well, maybe I will make the squad one of these years. And, like you said, some of these AAA players will be used for the major leagues. They'll be called up and down. They'll be, on the train back and forth while they're trying to break into these teams. And, really, it's crazy to think that, they have to grind. Why do you think Kyler Murray chose football, right? Yeah. Because he doesn't have to go through the minor leagues. He can just become a star instantly. He's probably going to sign a deal soon. He's leading the undefeated Cardinals right now. Right. And he could have been either baseball or football. But while there's more money in baseball, the money to football is quicker. It is so much quicker, because if he was in the minors, he has to get up, right? Then you have 6 years of team control before he can become a free agent, which, again, all of this stuff should hopefully be disappearing by the time these labor talks happen. Like, we cannot keep having our star players come up either super young because the team's like, we just got to do it.
Yeah.
And we won't ever re-sign them like the Rays, or they get held off until they're 25, 26 years old. So that way, we'll have the 6 years of their control. They'll be in the 30s. Then we won't sign them. Somebody else will sign them and get their decline. So that's taking already like another 6 years plus the 3 or 4 years you're in the minors to even get to your payday. NFL is like 4 years until your payday.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, even their rookie contracts or their first year in the major leagues, I mean, they really just gouge you. They don't pay you a lot. They did the same thing with Chris Bryant. They kept him on like a minor league contract. I mean, the poor guy, obviously he's getting bonuses for being promoted, but there's those guys like Patrick Wisdom or people like that have spent their lives in the minors trying to make it. And then they get to the majors and they're still under these contracts that are just so gruesome. And it's unbelievable how much money. And I get it. It's like, it's the only sport really that has such a deep farm system, and young players can go through the system, and they've got so many players and so many mouths to feed. But this is not a poor sport by any stretch of the means. And these are not poor owners at all. I think baseball has some of the most wealthy owners when you're talking about professional sports besides the NFL. And it really does. It's scary. It's sad. I've seen pictures. Jordan, I sent you a text message of like 6 minor league grown men sleeping on mattresses on the floor because they can't afford mattresses. And like, it's sad. I mean, it really, college kids live better than this, right? And they're going thousands and thousands. Not to mention some of these kids went to college, have debts that they have to pay. So you have to think about that. They've got families. Some of them have children, like and wives and husbands. And like, the list goes on and on and on. It just doesn't make sense to me how bad it has been for them. And this is the first time that's really just getting better. The group's executive director that was mentioned in Passan's report also said that with housing address, their efforts are going to be now tackling the seasonal pay, like the low seasonal pay. Most minor leaguers make less than $15,000 a year, which nobody can live on. And a lot of them, Jordan, won't receive their next paychecks because they're in the offseason until April. So their next paychecks are coming from, 6 months away. And you've got to be able to kind of find a living. And in places that, I mean, some of these places are like out in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, or, it's not like you can turn around, especially right now because of COVID and everything. It's messed everything up. Can people hire? A lot of these jobs are unavailable. Some of their wives can't move to where they are because they don't have housing. Like, what do they do?
They're always on the road.
Awful. Yes, awful. Bus travel is their choice of travel. But let's move on, and we can talk more about that in the off season as more time comes, and maybe we can find some minor leaguers that we can find to come on here, something that we can talk to about just the kind of situations that they have to go through. But I think it'd be kind of interesting to see their perspectives. But Mike Schildt, Jordan, was fired from the Cardinals on Thursday after they were bounced from the one-game playoff against the Dodgers. The press conference that he had today was a very eye-opening conference. Mike Schildt wanted to thank the Cardinals organization, said that the organization was a respectful organization, and he expresses his gratitude for allowing him to get that shot. And he says all the best wishes to the Cardinals organization. They have high standards on and off the field. And they said, and then he goes on earlier he was quoted as saying they had psychological differences, which sounds kind of weird the way he worded it, but ended up being, Jordan, the reason for his firing. And this was leaked out back in like July. And my brother is a big Cardinals fan, and he said that this was a big thing in Cardinal fandom because they were awful. They were not a team that was looking like they were going to make the playoffs. It looked like the Reds and the Brewers were going to take over. But the Cardinals went on that really long run. I think it was 17 straight or 18 straight wins. And they went on that run to end the season. And had they not, it probably would have happened quicker. But Schildt was fired because, Jordan, he wasn't following analytics, and he played – which played a huge part in that role of his departure. And they said that Mozeliak was pushing him to use analytics in the lineups that he was putting out there, but Schildt would continue and was never eager to do so. He continued making these lineups however he wanted. How do you feel, Jordan? Because I know you're not a huge analytic person. How do you feel about this firing based on this analytic bot.
It's in their right?
Yeah.
Like you need the whole organization on board with whatever direction you're taking.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think at times we get so involved with the numbers that we lose track of other things that make a good manager a good manager. You have to be able to handle the stuff. The fact is that, like, if he's saying that, like, he was supposed to be setting his lineups due to analytics or making in-game decisions due to analytics, that's bullcrap. At times there's a gut instinct. I mean, like, you can even look at, I'm not sure if this was analytics or not, but the fact that the Dodgers put Julio Urias out there saying that gives us our best chance in the 8th inning, and it didn't work because analytics doesn't pay in the factor, I don't think, of if a person's gassed or missing their zone, right? Like that kind of stuff doesn't match. I think sometimes we worry too much about analytics. I can kind of almost see it from a hitting standpoint because most of the time they're going to, why we shift, right? And why shifts have worked is because the analytics do work. But if you're making your lineups off analytics and your in-game decisions off analytics and your pitching decisions off analytics, then it's almost like you just need a robot out there that's going to say, this is what you do, now do it. And I think that does lose track of, a manager just being able to handle the players and know who's hot and who's not. Like, A-Rod, I think, was made fun of saying this, but there's times where you look at analytics and you say, how can they tell if a person's hot right now? Like, Jock Peterson is hot. He is on fire right now. And you can have players like Bellinger who have not been hot, right? I mean, he's been a little better in the playoffs, but, and that kind of thing where it's very tough to, like, like maybe the analytics might say you put this thing in that position, but it's because for the first, 300 plate appearances, that was true. But lately it's not been true. Does the analytics account for that? I have no idea. I don't see their models, right? I'm not a math guy anyway. Right. So this is very old man yelling at cloud. But, I do think that at times we just kind of forget the other parts of what it is to be a manager.
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Just playing at a high level and having gone through different managers. And back then, I mean, we're playing travel ball, and you talk to some of these college coaches, they're not breaking down analytics like that. That's not part of their job. I know some of the bigger college programs use some analytics, but again, it's not like it's, you go on gut instinct. You go on, okay, this player looked really good today. His swings look sharp. He's making great contact. He looks like he's got a great eye. Sometimes it can be a day of thing. Like, it can literally be, you're going out to the bullpen coach is watching a guy warm up and going, man, he's just not hitting his spots today. And so I think there's instances where, like, it just doesn't, like, going off of instinct. So, like, when we talk about it, Knable, who was thrown as a person who has always been a bullpen arm, the Dodgers go in and throw him as a starter, and they're having, like, this bullpen game, and we'll get into the bullpen game a little bit. We talked about this some last time, but again, it just doesn't. Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess I've never really seen it work, like, to perfection the way they wanted it to work, right? Like, it always seems like it goes wrong.
The Rays go hard with analytics, and it did not work out for them. But here, let me read you his record, okay?
Okay.
Overall, 252 wins, 199 losses, of .559 winning percentage. He joined the manager. He became manager mid-season for the Cardinals in 2018. He managed 69 games. Nice. He won 41 of those, lost 28. They finished third. All right. 2019. So he took a third place team.
Yeah.
2019, they played 162 games. He won 91, lost 71 with a .562 win percentage, and finished first in the NL Central and lost in the NLCS against the Nationals, who would end up winning that year. Now, 2020, shorter season. He managed 58 games, 30 wins, 28 losses. Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry, I tried to mute.
30 wins, 28 losses, finished second in the NL Central and lose the wild card. And then in 2021, 162 games managed, 90 wins, 72 losses. So again, once we go back to having a full season, he's right around where they were. But they finished second in the NL Central and losing the wild card, a 1 game off against a 106 win team.
Right.
Right. And that was it. But that is 3 straight playoff appearances after a half season or so, or less than a half season of taking over and finishing third, going first place, then second, and getting wild card spots after an 18-game win streak this year to get into the playoffs. And I you know what? I swear the GM was probably sweating during that 18-game win streak the whole time, thinking, how can I fire him with this? Oh, we lose the wild card? Now I can. Because then he can point to that and say, we didn't make the wild card. He doesn't want to use analytics. We're good. But does the analytics matter if you make it into the playoffs those 3 years and have a shot at winning and getting 9 in his 2 full seasons, 2 90-win seasons?
Right.
I'd kill for that now. Is mind-boggling. How many times do we have a manager get fired for making it 3 straight playoff runs and he only having 2 full seasons anyway?
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. The analytics, if that's what they're going with, then you don't want some guy constantly being like, I'm not doing my job that way, because it is the GM's job to kind of set the tone. But I do hope he gets a job somewhere else and is able to just do it his way, because it seemed to have been working.
Yeah, it's a club that has always performed well, but the club that he's done it with, it is not a team that should have won 90 games, in my honest opinion. They've had issues with starting pitching, staying healthy. They've had issues with a Matt Carpenter that is aging. Paul Goldschmidt was really good this season. He had not been as good in that abbreviated season or in the year, that they really needed him. But again, he played pretty well this year. They don't have like that touted lineup that you would have normally in like these 100-win seasons, but to get 90-some wins in seasons that were in full length, with the team that I know that they have, and I know that they usually just find ways to win, but the fact that he just found ways to win, and I think the players enjoyed his time there, which is another thing that I think that is just thrown out the window now, is the relationships. And we'll get into somebody that I think here later on as we talk about who got knocked out of the playoffs, a former Cardinal manager, but I think so much is put into analytics and not the relationship between player and coach is the issue. Couple more notes, just some notes here. The Cubs signed a new GM, so my neck of the woods, Carter Hawkins. Jordan, he's 37 years old. What are we doing with our lives? 37 years old, most recently an assistant general manager with the Cleveland Guardians. I got to get used to saying that. Had spent 14 years in the organization. He was a scout in youth development, so that's always a good sign when you got guys like that. And speaking of another GM search, the Mets are currently in their search for a GM that can kind of push this team to the extra mile, I guess, or somebody in their front office that can really do a good job. They were after Billy Beane for a while, Jordan. He withdraws his name from the GM search because he's got no interest in being in that toxic front office. You and I talked about this a little bit. Does this surprise you? Because I think Billy's in a place with Oakland where I think it's time for him to try to seek other avenues, because he gets them to a point, and they almost did make the postseason this season. They get to a point where they are that good, or they make a nice run, but they're just not that level because they just don't have that much talent. Just kind of like the Rays, I guess, to be quite fair. The Rays have had more success in doing so, but Billy has done it with or an even longer period of time, because he's known as Moneyball. He's known as being this. Do you think that, are you surprised he's still with the Oakland, and do you think that he goes anywhere else eventually?
I think maybe the team will go somewhere else first before he does. That's
a good point. Vegas.
And maybe that'll change the fortunes of the club. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I did also want to just go back to Schildt real quick. Is that the GM has been the GM for a while, so he would have hired him. Like, you don't have that conversation.
No.
You don't have that conversation when you hire him. Like, how do you feel about analytics? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of times, and I just saw this with the Landon Donovan withdrawing his name from RSL coach position, that a lot of times when they withdraw their name, it means that they've already kind of figured out who's going to be taking that job, and it's not them. So I think Billy Beane would jump for the Mets, honestly. I mean, if he could, but I feel like the Mets want to go a different way, and that's why he's withdrawing his name to save face, because the Mets is a historic club. They are a team that, like, you'd be like, man, if I can make them good, I am a legend. How it's gone for the Mets recently, right?
Yeah.
And more eyes would be on you. It's New York. Like, I think Billy Beane would definitely want to go there, but and he would have a lot more than Moneyball type situation. He'd have legit Moneyball situation with the new owner, where he could spend actual money. So it is something that I think intrigued him, but maybe we're going to hear about a Mets GM sometime soon if he withdrew his name from there.
Yeah, and I do think what you said was very interesting. I think all things are pointing to Oakland being like a Vegas baseball team.
Unfortunately.
And it does suck because I love them playing the Bay Area. I wish they would invest in being in a different part of the Bay Area and kind of that idea of, because the Giants get a great following. I think Oakland could do the same, but they just don't invest in the club. And it's tough on him. He's got, like you said, he's got Moneyball where he's restricted on how much money he has. The idea of having as much money as possible, a plethora of a wealth of resources with the Mets, I thought that would be intriguing, but I guess he said no. Maybe, Jordan, he's looking down the line. There's something else that might pop up that he might take advantage of. Whoever knows, that could be maybe working with the offices in MLB. Maybe that's the club moving. Who knows what it will be at this point. But I just wanted to see your thoughts because I thought that was an interesting headline before we move on. But moving on and kind of staying in the American League, obviously, we want to talk about the playoffs that are currently going on because it's the meat and potatoes of the program here. Jordan's excited because he gets to talk about some of the players and coaches and all the teams that he loves. I saw an interesting article. Yeah, I saw an article, Jordan, because some of these are the most hated franchises right now in baseball. I think the Dodgers rank really high because they're now very successful. The Astros, because of the cheating scandal. The Red Sox have a big hatred. When you talk about New York fans or just fans in general, I feel like the whole AL East hates them. I feel like the whole AL hates them at this point, just because of the things that have happened and transpired with them. So you've got a lot of teams, and a lot of people don't like the Braves. If you talk to an NL East fan, Matt, some of my Braves friends, that you could just tell that people hated them, and they always knew it because they had owned that division for so long.
I love the Braves.
Yeah. Oh, it's fun. But I think it was funny because it was like there's an article out like, how do you pick between the most hated teams? And if it was the Yankees, I think it was the other team that could have been added in to have the most hated fan base. But anyway, I digress. But the Astros beat the White Sox 10-1 in Game 4 to advance to the ALCS. They pitched Carlos Rondon, who hadn't started since September 29th. That just felt like a recipe for disaster. But Jordan, it really did feel like the White Sox had no chance in this one. Tony La Russa, his time with the White Sox has not gone according to plan. I think before the season he was, pulled over or arrested for DUI or something along the lines. He also had run-ins with a lot of their star players, even players that had some kind of reputation there. They got into it with him. They've had problems with some of their rookies. They've had problems with some of their veterans as far as attitude. How much do you base this on Tony Russa? Do you think that he lasts much longer? Because it really just wasn't a good series. They were outscored 31-18. What do you think the White Sox do from here? And how do you think that the Astros fare going forward?
I don't know if you can really put too much on the White Sox on this. I mean, it's very hard to beat these Astros.
Yeah.
As we've learned, because they've now gotten to the ALCS 5 straight years, which is ridiculous, by the way. which means that we're probably looking at all these players either leaving the team or retiring before they stop these runs because they are just so good at hitting, whether they're cheating or not. When they're which makes the cheating even more frustrating because it really could have been not even needed.
Right?
Like they probably could have won the World Series without cheating and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, all they did was actually just put an asterisk next to their name, an asterisk next to the Astros.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of frustrating thing because I did really like this team before that came out because they were not the Red Sox. They were not the Yankees.
Yeah.
It was fun to see them do well because I was like, finally, a team that just kind of built themselves up. Not a lot of free agent signings. They made the trades. They got there. They're not one of the big evil empires. Then you get the whole cheating scandal come out, which really, I think, made them one of those hated ones. I don't think anybody really would have hated them that much.
No.
If it was, I know people always thought some of the players were smug, but when you're that good, you're usually smug, right?
Right.
So that is, I don't know how much you can put on the White Sox for that. I think Tony La Russa, I think they already said he's coming back next year.
Yes.
So that's not going to be a problem. They got a pretty cupcake division at times, so I think that won't be a problem.
At times.
And,
all the time.
Yeah. But I mean, sometimes it goes in cycles where it'll be the Twins, it'll be the Tigers, it'll be them. But I think they still have enough power to win that division handily next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the luck of the draw. Do you get the Astros again, or are you going to get another team?
Right.
Because I think this White Sox could have. We saw them do pretty well against the Yankees in the Field of Dreams game. Like they can go up against these teams and do something. But I really think they just faced off against their worst matchup. I think only idiots picked the White Sox to move on from this, and I'm one of those idiots. But so I don't know how much you can lay at their feet. I think this Astros team is just too good.
Right.
And it's frustrating because they're probably going to be this good for quite a time.
So you talked about those Astros leaving and just kind of mentioned this in before we get into like the next series and kind of the ALCS and talk more about the Astros. Zach Greinke, Justin Verlander, Carlos Correa, Yuliziki Gurriel, Joe Smith, Martin Maldonado, Yimi Garcia, Kendall Graveman, and Drew Batura are all free agents. A couple of those guys, Jordan, especially Carlos Correa, who news came out that it does not sound like the Astros have any interest in matching whatever they're going to have to pay for Carlos. And keep this in mind, the Astros are not a filthy rich club like some of these teams are. They have an organization, like you said, that was built from a core group that came up very young. They picked off nice pieces, and that's how they became successful. It's really weird because you mix in like Zach Greinke and Justin Verlander, who are both hurt, and you talk about guys that have had storied careers, guys that I think may have some left in the tank, not a ton, but at this rate, all you need is 3 innings. But I think you've got a mixture of guys that were like consummate pros, and then you've got the guys that are always going to be marked with this stuff. And I think anybody trying to go to Houston, they pick anywhere else if they're approached by Houston and the Red Sox, or Houston and the Rays, or Houston and Baltimore. I think you don't pick Houston. I think there's such a tarnish when it comes to that club now. It'll be interesting to see what they do after this 5 straight, but we'll get into that a little bit more.
If you think Correa's going to pick the Orioles over the Astros,
hey, anything weird can happen.
They would have to overpay him by a lot, and that's just not the Orioles.
So Crush Davis.
So it's not gonna happen.
He can replace Crush Davis with Carlos.
Oh yeah, overpaid.
All right, so Boston beat the Rays 6-5. Jordan, when we were talking, it was pretty much over. It was 5-0 when we had gotten off the podcast last time, and I said on the show, looks like it's going to be Boston. Now it ended up being Boston, but the Rays stormed back. A person I want to talk about, Randy Arozarena, who was with the Cardinals but was traded over to the Rays, and ever since has become the Reggie Jackson of October. Mr. October Jr., Randy Arozarena. Jordan, I want to read off a couple of numbers here that I found fascinating. In the ALDS, he had 19 plate appearances, 15 at-bats, 4 runs, 5 hits, 1 double. He had 3 guys, a home run. And in the in the World Series last year, 3 home runs. In 2020, in the ALCS, he had 4 home runs. In the ALDS against the Yankees in 2020, he had 3 home runs. The kid is absolutely off the charts. He's in total, his numbers are 354 batting average. He is a .760 slugging percentage. He's a 1.197 OPS in the postseason as a 26-year-old. Does he go up from here? Can you get any better than that? And is this kid destined for somewhere else? Because I don't think the Rays can hold on to anybody. It's only a matter of when they leave.
Can I ask Mosliak something from the Cardinals?
Yeah.
What analytic told you to trade him? I feel like if anybody,
oh, that was great.
I feel like if anybody gets a message from the Rays saying we want your guy, the instinct should be no, right? The instinct should be no, you're not getting him. You see something in him. We're gonna figure out what that is, and we're gonna get him popping here.
Yeah, that was good. That was a solid
burn.
The Cardinals. Oh boy, and this gets even worse. The Cardinals traded Jose Martinez, Randy Arozarena, and future considerations to Tampa Bay for Matthew Liberatore and Edgardo Rodriguez, who Liberatore was a left-handed pitcher that they thought was going to be something, and now I don't even know where he is.
The Rays knew that already, though.
Right?
That is the thing.
That's the Rays. That's what they
the
do.
Rays. If they come to Baltimore and they say, we want, we want this stud, this pitcher that's struggling in AAA, and we'll give you this guy, I'd be a little weary of
the bag of money.
Doesn't sound good to me because this guy's going to bomb or something. I don't know.
Yeah. If the Rays come calling for one of your players, just go no, and then call that player up immediately and
extend him for 10 years, $135 billion. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. That's pretty funny. I wasn't ready for that. That was pretty good. All right, so let's get into the ALCS and the NLCS. The reason why we are here, the main event, Jordan. First, I want to start it off by saying the Astros come into this limping, and we'll get into the game. The series is currently 1-1. And they play again tonight.
The game's starting now,
yes.
So we will
update you as we go.
Yeah. So by the time you listen to this, you probably already know who's on top.
And who's on first and second, and wins on third, and whatever. But
no, I don't know who's on third.
Right. Astros are going to be without Lance McCullers Jr., their ace for this game. He was throwing the ball and had some forearm discomfort, and it ended up being a forearm strain, some of those muscles in there. And Jordan, that can be a couple months. It doesn't sound like he'll be back for any of these games coming up unless something miraculous happens.
I'm pretty sure I had the same injury, but mine was reaching for my bag of chips.
When were you coming? Jordan, were you texting again? Jordan, how long did that injury last? Was that a?
It still bothers me. That was a while ago.
So, Lance, if you heard it here first, we are sorry for the.
You're out for a few months.
Luis Garcia, Jordan, also left game 2 of the ALCS with a right knee strain. Sounds like he's going to be out for the series too, and maybe the World Series as well if it does not get healthy enough to land on that or to push off on that foot.
See, I get that from just sleeping on it wrong, but
oh man, Lance McCullers Jr. Jordan was phenomenal in the games that he did pitch. He played against the White Sox, .84 ERA. 2 games started. He had 10 and 2/3 innings pitched, gave up just 9 hits, just 1 earned run over those stretch of innings, and he had 9 strikeouts against the White Sox in that ALDS. So coming in the ALCS, and he looked really sharp coming into it. I thought that this was a kid that was going to run through. And it's one of those pitchers that are rare now. I mean, you got a guy that can hurl 6 innings, 7 innings, and get you through most of the game. Saves your bullpen, and then you can have one of those weird bullpen games that they've been doing. But without him, and now without Luis Garcia, they've got to rely on a number of guys, and they've got to rely on a bullpen that at times can be shaky. At times it's been good. So it's been a difficult stretch for the Astros. And coming into this, they're down without 2 of their better pitchers in that rotation. big losses here. I mean, is this insurmountable, or do you think being 1-1, they still can kind of pull this one out, and maybe it's the next series that struggles?
I think that the Astros can absolutely still win this series. I think that, and you know what? I say they will. I think they will win this series. Just a gut feeling here, and a little bit of a prayer that the Red Sox don't make it. Sorry, Red Sox. But yeah, the Astros, I think that they can. I mean, the pitching aspect will suck for them, but there's times where the Astros can turn on the runs, and it won't really matter, I guess, who's on the mound. But as we see with Game 2, the Red Sox can do the same exact thing with 2 grand slams in back-to-back innings, which is just an insane number. But I think the Astros, I can't count this team out. I already did last series, and that failed. So this time I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to say they win the whole World Series now.
Oh, well, look at that.
Then if I'm wrong, there's a happy medium there, right?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I feel like I'm going to be right one of these times. So.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about my predictions as I go over here, who they're going to rely on. Framber Valdez, who pitched in a game 1, in the ALCS, and I thought wasn't great. I thought there were times where he lacked the consistency in the strike zone to make him a formidable pitcher and to go deep into games. Because I think if, again, you get into this bullpen game, especially with the amount of starters that they've lost, with the amount of innings that come from those arms, it's going to be big. I mean, you can lose some guys, but losing 2 arms that usually can get you 3 to 6 innings, depending upon what situations that you're in, those are huge losses. Even though Luis Garcia is a rookie, he played extremely well. He logged 155 and a third innings in this regular season, 28 starts and 30 appearances, 3.3 ERA. Like, that's a really good year a really solid year for a rookie pitcher. They do have some options. Zach Greinke is still sitting around. He's had success in the past, but again, this year was not fantastic. He had a 4.16 ERA, and he logged the most innings. So he's had the consistency. He's had the innings under his belt, but again, he gives up quite a few runs, and in that ballpark, man, you can really get hit hard and heavy with a lot of runs. Tonight, they're going with Jose Urquidy. I think that's how you say that name. Solid option. He's got 20 games this year, had a 3.62 ERA over 107 innings. And while keeping his walk count down a little bit, was pretty decent. He's got a guy that I think they can rely on. But those are kind of the names that they've thrown out there as guys that maybe without Lance and them, that they'll really rely heavily on. I think it'll be a matter of, can they get through some of these games, especially now that they're going to Fenway for the next 3. Can they get through the Red Sox in that meaty order without pitching? It could spell a lot of trouble for the Astros going forward. Game 1, Jordan, Kike Hernandez, 4 for 5, 2 runs, 2 RBIs, 2 home runs. He is hotter than
analytics can't tell you that.
Yeah, no. Oh man, John Basalek's going to not listen to the podcast anymore. Here's where that problem arises, right? Kike is just that guy in the postseason. Every year, Joe Panic, I can remember being that guy back in the day. You've got guys like Bernie Williams, or you just have guys that show up, and it's like, okay, there
is a thing called clutch. As much as people don't want to, there is. I mean, it's just people that don't get phased by the occasion. And
he has shown that he is one of them, right? Right now, and barring this game that's currently going on and the postseason, he's hitting 667 in the ALCS, which is like unheard of, right? He had gone, I think it was 8 or 9 plate appearances without being retired and gotten a hit, which is absolutely insane. His on-base plus slugging is 1.778, which is absolutely unheard of as well. And with Kike in the lineup, I'm not sure where you get the outs. I mean, Kyle Schwarber's played well. Xander Bogaerts, when Rafael Devers has hit it, he has hit it hard. You've just got guys consistently through their lineup that I think make a difference. And adding Kike in with a shockingly good NLC or ALCS and an ALDS where he just hit the cover all the ball. I'm not sure how much better that this Red Sox lineup can be. Framber Valdez, he went 2 2/3, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, walked a bunch of guys, couldn't miss any bats, and just really didn't have it. The Red Sox capitalized on quite a few misses outside of the zone, not getting his pitches where they need to be. And 64 pitches, he only threw 34 strikes. So again, 29 of those being balls, almost a 50-50 cut, which is not going to get it done, especially in the postseason, especially when you're on such a short leash, which all these guys are. Jose Altuve goes absolutely bonkers, hits a game-tying home run. Place went wild. And then Carlos Correa in the bottom of the 7th follows him with the solo shot. And then Michael Brantley, who has been a shockingly good baseball player everywhere he's been. He's with the Cleveland Guardians before. He's now currently with the Astros. The dude can just rake. And has the top 5. I mean, he's in the 5th. Yeah, he's the 5th, tied for 5th with the longest hitting streak in postseason history. He's behind Pat Borders with 16. He's tied with Pat Borders, sorry. Manny Ramirez had 17 games, Derek Jeter 17, and Hank Bauer 17 games. So with a hit tonight, Jordan, he will be on par with the best hitting streak in all postseason history. So there's a little fun fact for you. Top of the 9th, Kiko doing it again, but not enough. Didn't have guys on base. The Red Sox end up falling just short of Houston 5-4 in game 1. And then in game 2, Jordan, you were watching game 2 and texting me as game 2 is going on. I had a housewarming party, so I'm getting text messages, and it got extra grand in this lovely game 2. It was 8-0 after the 2nd inning. Jordan, what happened? I'm so confused. What happened? 8-0. How could it be?
It just two grand slams. I mean, I don't know. It was kind of insane. That's where you're going to run into the pitching issues that you were talking about there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just Boston got hot. And they just were deciding to just smack the ball out of the stadium, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it was pretty insane. And just that is the danger of Boston in this life. It's a really good series because of that. Yes. I think both of these teams can go off for a day, and we might end up, with a 7-game series, which would be really fun.
JD Martinez, Rafael Devers, homer in those grand slams. 8-0 in the 2nd inning, and that crowd went paper thin around the 4th inning. There was hardly anybody at the stadium. I think they all went over the Dynamo game, but then I laugh at that too. So,
nobody was there.
Nobody there. A lot of fun things happened though for Boston. Kike Hernandez, 5 total home runs. He homers again in game 2, matches the most in Red Sox history. Jordan. He is currently tied with the big guys. I think it's David Ortiz and Manny both have 5 home runs that match that strength, or it's like in a single postseason. So he homers one more time, and in a single postseason, he will have passed the best hitters in Red Sox history to be the most single postseason home run leader and for that franchise. So game 3, we won't really preview because it's currently going on. But again, Jordan calling the Astros a World Series winner today. So if you're a betting man, Jordan said the Astros. So naturally go with the Dodgers.
Don't do that.
Don't bet on the Cardinals. They're not in it. So again, we went through those. Eduardo Rodriguez is pitching for Boston. Jose Urquidy is pitching for Houston. Both relatively not successful in postseason play. I think, actually, you know what? I lied to you. Jose has had some success in postseason career. Eduardo, not so much. 5.4 ERA, and he has not been solid as far as an option for the Boston Red Sox. You wish, Jordan. So moving on to the NLCS. The Atlanta Braves bounced the Brewers. Brewers just not allowed to. They just didn't get runs. It's a team that relied heavily on pitching. It was a nice pitching series. If you wanted pitching, this was the series to turn on because not a lot of runs scored, but Atlanta squeaks by and is able to bounce the Brewers from the NLDS, sending the Brewers packing. in a division that's just not very competitive right now. Both them and the AL or NL East, just not very competitive division. So I think the Braves and I think the Brewers are pretty good spots to return to the postseason next year. But again, wild things have happened before. Series 2 and the other NLDS, the Dodgers bounced the MLB best San Francisco Giants. The San Francisco Giants, again, also did not score runs. They were a team that overperformed, 75.5 expected wins. I think they go over by like 23 wins at 108 and have one of their best seasons they've ever had as a franchise as far as performance. They go out and get a couple nice pieces. They add Chris Bryant to that mix, and hopefully he was able to fix the offensive issues. But he was about the only one that had a good offensive season, postseason with a couple hits. I think he hit like 400 and something. But a pretty good season for Chris, but a horrible ending to a very, very good season for the Giants. And, it's tough because I think, and if you're a fan of this team, I think you go home and think, next year might not be as rosy. Next year, we might perform as we were expected to do, because if you go back to expected wins, they're pretty accurate in baseball. It's kind of scary just how accurate those analytics have been in the past. But again, the Giants were a team that obviously debunked that. So they move on. Dodgers and the Braves, NLCS. Everybody expects the Dodgers to win this series. Game 1, Jordan, Atlanta wins it 3-2. Austin Riley. MVP shouts, anybody? There's a couple people out there
for the NLCS or for the whole league.
Whole league, they're all throwing his name
NL.
out there. I doubt it, because Bryce Harper was very good.
And that's the thing, is people are going to start looking at these postseasons but they vote beforehand, so it's not. It's probably not. It's
already
good.
Done and dusted.
Right.
However, Austin Riley, 24 years old, hit 303. And had a good slash line, 303, 367, and 531. Pretty
I
decent.
did that at 24 as well, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that was your softball league numbers. 33 home runs was not in your softball league card.
No, just the one.
No. But that was before your Rafael Devers shoulder injury.
Yes.
Yeah. But after Ronald Acuna Jr. went down with his knee injury, Jordan, Austin Riley hit 333. Which is absolutely bonkers. That is up there. Nobody hits 333 anymore, so that's wild. Austin Riley played hero twice in Game 1. Jordan tied up the game with tied up the game at 2-2 with a fourth inning solo shot against Tony Gonsolin, and then in the ninth, yanks a base hit into the left field to score Ozzie Albies to win the game. And through 5 postseason games, Jordan, Austin Riley is hitting 368, which, again, not bad numbers in the postseason. So Austin Riley, 2 home runs, 3 runs driven in. Jordan, after Game 1, how much of the panic meter, how high in the panic meter are you going with the Dodgers after Game 1? How high did you have it?
Well, I thought I was shocked Braves won. I was like, that's cool, and then you're thinking, okay, well, maybe the Dodgers, get them tomorrow. They really only need probably one game from Atlanta before they go back to LA.
Absolutely.
to feel pretty good about it.
Yep.
Well, they didn't get, any of the 2. So as they're going to head back to LA now, but after Game 1, you think, okay. And then in the first inning or 2, whatever it was, when Dodgers made it 2-0, you're like, oh, okay, they're coming out. This might be a 1-1 series like we're seeing in the ALCS. But the fact that the Braves win both of these off walk-offs is just so much fun. Now, I want to ask you, Logan, is that a good thing? I mean, obviously you always want to win when you can, but they're not going to get a chance to walk off in LA. So, I mean, what do you think there?
Yeah, I think it's a really tough line to toe, just because when you're one of those teams that rely heavily, it's kind of like the Rays. Rays rely heavily on the dramatics. And when you rely heavily on the dramatics and you're oftentimes the underdog when you're relying on those late inning wins. I think that, yes, in baseball, that just doesn't pan out, right? You get to that 9th inning and then that other team flips over and they're the home team. They get the last at bat. So, yeah, I think relying heavily on those late inning hits, and that's what the Braves have done. They've all been late surges for the Braves. They've been trailing. They've come back. They've looked like the odd man out. it's been in front of a home crowd. Now you flip that over to LA, which is probably one of the hardest baseball stadiums to play in, as far as fans, as far as just the grounds and the layout, as far as hitter's park or in a pitcher's park. Like what really comes into play there. And I think with LA, you just don't know what you're getting, and it's a tough team. So I think that when you look at this, you really want to rely on getting a lead and getting it early. You need to do that on the road. If you can't do that on the road, I just don't see the Braves faring well in LA. I hope they do, because it's kind of a fun story to follow. They're one of the weaker teams in the playoffs is giving one of the better teams in the playoffs some trouble here, being up 2-0, as we'll get into in game 2. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's tough to kind of rely on that. Speaking of which, you need to rely on your bullpen to be really good. Bullpen games worked extremely well for the Dodgers. The Dodgers throwing all sorts of arms out there. Jordan, they had 8 relievers combined to hold the Braves to just the 3 runs and 6 hits. That's also concerning, I guess. If you're looking at the Braves, you got to get more hits off of a collection of bullpen arms. They struck out 14, including 2 in an inning 5 times. It was a wild collection of pitchers. And no Dodger pitcher recorded more than 5 outs or threw more than 28 pitches. So that was a wild stat that I'd found, which, again, you can't rely on that either. So, again, I think it might be one of those AL teams just looking to beat up on the NL teams. I think it'll be a matter of when we get to that point what the decisions are. But heading into game 2, Jordan, I wanted to talk about the fact that you have Max Scherzer coming again, right? He's pitching in his 4th game since August 6th, which is absolutely insane, especially in a postseason. He pitched October 6th versus the Cardinals, October 11th versus San Francisco. He gets in 1 inning against the Giants to kind of close out that series, right, in October 14th, but then bounces back 3 days later and has to go out and start against an Atlanta team in Atlanta. And he goes just 4 innings and comes out because of a dead arm issue. And Jordan, you and I texted about this. Is this concerning? Should the Dodgers be concerned that their ace is running on low fuel and the tank seems to be pretty empty right now in a stretch where they need him the most?
No. The reason why is because I think they'll have to use him to even get to where they need to be. So
yeah.
if he's not going to be able to go, that spells the end of it. So I'm not sure if I'm worried, because it's not like, oh, we need him for the World Series. You have to even get there at this rate. And it's not written in the stars this year that they might get there. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Braves win the whole thing. They win the World Series.
Oh, what's happening? I'm so confused. Didn't you just deem the Astros the World Series champions? Yeah. I'm so confused right now.
I can't be wrong if I name
That's
all
true.
4 of the World Series winners, right? But no, I think I think this Braves team has what it takes to upset this team, and because of the issue of, like, Scherzer has pitched what did we say, 12 days, 4 games?
Yeah.
I think at times they're getting a little too cute with their pitching.
Yeah.
The Dodgers. Part of it out of necessity, I guess. But who started game 1 for them? It was
game 1 would have been the Dodgers.
Yeah. It was the guy that pitched them in one of the games in
not Bueller. No, Walker Bueller's pitching tomorrow.
Yeah, no, it was I'm trying to find out.
I'm blanking on it.
You don't have it written here.
My fault, people. I was taking notes and I forgot.
That's okay. Game 1 starters for NLCS. Ooh, where is it? Okay.
Game 1 was Knable.
Yes.
Yeah,
but didn't they pull the same exact move in the NLDS though too? With Knable starting? Or am I wrong?
I don't know. I don't think it was the Dodgers.
I thought it was, because I thought it was Knable again. But maybe I'm wrong. But my whole thing being is, sometimes I feel like you're outsmarting yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're going out there and saying, I'm going to pitch one of my relievers first, and then we're going to go to the starter.
Right.
That, then the starter's coming in and they're, confused. They're not on the same, on the same wavelength here. But let's see. I thought they did start him another time, but maybe I'm wrong. Because I thought that was odd that they were doing it twice, but that might just be my own memory failing me there.
Jordan is 30, by the way. So
yeah, I'm getting up there. But postseason pitching, he made a start against the Giants.
Did he?
Right? Yep. Game started against the Giants. That was game.
Probably game 3 or 4.
I think it was the one to win it, because I think that's when I was texting you like, hey.
Oh, that's right. It would have been because they did it backwards. That's right. They did, because Scherzer threw one inning to end the game. So yes, it was the backwards game.
So then they go ahead and do that again for game 1 here, and you're like, okay, I get it. Like, he can come out and throw like 99 miles an hour, but what if you need him later in the game? And guess what? The Braves walked off both of these games, and maybe if you had your better pitchers at the end, they don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the analytics say otherwise. If so, maybe Dave Roberts is going to get hired by the Cardinals here in the offseason.
Yeah, of course they are. No, I agree with you. I think it's a weird. It's become strange and relying heavily on some of these statistics and numbers just to try to get you through. Just doesn't work. But yeah, just kind of running through game 2. Corey Seager started the Dodgers out with a 2-run lead. Ian Anderson, who started for the Braves, has a 6.38 ERA in the first inning and allowed 6 home runs. Does it again here with Corey Seager. And I think fans started to feel comfortable again. 2-0 lead. Dodgers looked good. And that held up until the 4th inning, which Jock Tober decided to strike once again, starting in place of Jorge Soler, both former Cubbies, which is lovely. Hit a booming home run off of Max Scherzer to tie the score at 2-2. And after that's when you started to know Max's arm was just not there. He just wasn't getting the velocity on it. Had really struggled. But Jock has been tearing the cover off the baseball, like Jordan had said. NLDS, he really did. 7 plate appearances, 7 at-bats. He had 3 hits, 2 home runs, and 5 RBIs against the Brew Crew. And then the NLCS, he's had 7 at-bats, so 14 at-bats. He's had 3 home runs. He's gotten 7 RBIs. He's had 5 hits. Absolutely raking in October. And again, it's like we said, Jordan, like on the AL side, on the NL side, it's got Jock Peterson written all over it. I mean, he's had such a huge implication on this series, and he's been wearing some of the best pearl necklaces that I've seen to this date in MLB baseball, right? MLB baseball. Jordan noticed something fun. The Braves fans are doing what, Jordan?
They're all wearing the necklaces.
I love
it.
Awesome. I'm thinking about getting some as well to wear them if Jock continues. I loved Jock on the Cubs. It was a short stint, but man, was he a lot of fun to watch.
We had a comment from Elijah. Let me tell you this. So Elijah was a listener on the Break Room.
Yeah.
When we did when I did my Superstore fan podcast. So and he, is a Cubs fan, and he follows me on Twitter, and I guess that's how he saw it. I don't know, but or maybe he was just following some hashtag, but he ended up seeing it, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's Elijah. But so I'm not sure if he listens to the show. If he does, thanks for supporting us. But if not, listen to it. But anyway, his question was, where was this when he was with the Cubs? I didn't get to see. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I thought he did pretty well with the Cubs.
It was there, yes. It wasn't like it was pretty heroic. Like he had a couple game tying.
But you can't have too many heroics if the Cubs are not in position to win a lot, right? I mean, that's.
At the beginning of the year, so at the beginning of the year, I think it was up until, I want to say it was June that we were in first place. And it was because of Jock Peterson. Like, it literally was because of Jock. I mean, Jock he'd become that leadoff hitter that we had missed in Dexter Fowler. He'd be at number 2, he'd be number 4, he'd number 5. Like, wherever Rossi wanted to hit him, Jock, I love Jock to death. Played really well defensively, which he hadn't been really that known for. But I thought he was fantastic with the Cubs. So when I saw the tweet, I was like, I don't know what Elijah was watching, but I loved Jock, and I thought he did extremely well. And that's why the Braves wanted him. I mean, that's why he was one of the first trades in the trade deadline. Like it was early that the Braves came knocking because of how well he played. And that was after Acuna Jr.'s injury. But anyway.
Yeah.
Dodgers reclaimed the lead in the top of the seventh, thanks to a well-timed placed hit by Chris Davis. Go figure. He's doing it all. 2-run score, and it scoots underneath Hereda's glove. And Jordan had the right fielder. Had the right fielder not been in behind. I think it was. I want to say it was. I can't think of the name now. Cody Bellinger was in behind, and had he not been behind. Sorry, not Cody Bellinger. It would have been Jock because it was the Braves. So Jock went in behind the center fielder, picks up the ball. Had he not been there, it would have been a couple more runs, and the Braves aren't even talking about being up 2-0. Then what else? Braves scored 2 in the frame thanks to some large, bold base running moves by Ron Washington, former I want to say Nationals coach. But did you see these sends, Jordan, at all when
Ron Washington?
Yeah.
No, I didn't see him. I saw the plays. I didn't get to see the replays of him just like windmilling it.
They were both wildly close. And Ron was like, there's a picture, it's great, of Ron Washington above the dugout, and he's like smiling at the camera. Yeah. It was from
I saw that, yeah.
They were like, who is this man? He's a maniac. And it was just
were good sends, though.
They were good sends. I didn't
think
for it. Yeah, I did too. People were like ripping them. I was like, why? I mean, they won the game, and that's why they won the game. Pretty gutsy in the postseason for a third base coach, because you could be the opposite. Who was it? Was it the Rays third base coach that sent? Was it the Rays? Who the heck was it that sent? I want to say it was the Rays third base coach sent somebody, and they were it was the Rays because
it was the Yankees.
The Yankees. That's what it was.
It was the Yankees. Yeah, Phil Nevin sent Judge home, and Judge was out by like 3 miles. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was a little different. Ron Washington actually looked like he knew what was happening. And then Rosario hits a sharp grounder in the bottom of the ninth, and Corey Seager lets it go under the glove. It was smashed. It was hit really hard. It's a tough play for a shortstop playing like up the middle because of the shift. That's a really tough play, and I'm surprised that he got that close to it. It's a tough play to have kind of one hops him right close to his feet, and that's a tough one to kind of scoop up and make a play, especially going home to end that game. But again, a really crucial mistake, I guess, for the Dodgers, and a huge win, 2-0. Jordan, you said it, that the Dodgers have a chance to come back. Do they complete the series and end up coming back?
No, I just said the Braves are winning it all. So
I
do think
the Astros are winning it all too. So
Braves, Astros,
both winning it all.
They're going to get to the World Series and just decide that's enough. That's all we need.
Okay.
We'll split the rings.
All right. So if you're right about that, we should become some kind of crazy podcast.
But no, I do think it might be those two in the World Series, though. That's going to be my final prediction, because I think we'll know by the next time.
We will. Yes, we will. Yeah. So Walker Buehler is taking the mound tomorrow night for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
That's at 5:08.
5:08. I guess it's afternoon for them. If you're listening in LA, it'll be 2:00, which is rough on a Tuesday. I feel like that's a kind of a weird start time. But anyway, Walker Buehler, postseason stats: 3.3 ERA, 3.38 ERA, 10 and 2/3 inning pitch, 9 strikeouts. Hasn't been phenomenal in the postseason this year. But he's somebody that when he is on, it can be a lot of trouble for the opposing hitters. Had really good stuff in his other postseason appearances. He's got a 2.50 ERA and 72 innings pitched. And he had a wonderful 2021 and even got some nods towards the Cy Young. 16 wins, 4 losses, 2.47 ERA and 207 innings pitched. and had 212 strikeouts. So a really good pitch and a really good arm. And Walker Buehler, if he can figure it out tomorrow, this Dodgers series becomes more interesting. If he can't, it's because Charlie Morton has figured it out. Charlie, pretty decent, not great. Again, I think the Braves are going to rely heavily more on him being as good as he was against the Brew Crew, and really pitch to his best abilities to get guys out. Really, I think struggles at times to get guys out. A lot of contact against Charlie. Not a ton of strikeouts. So if Charlie can pull off a 4 or 5 inning, I guess is a good outing now. I think the Braves stand a pretty good chance. Braves, realistically, Jordan, they just need one game in LA. They just need one. They've got the last 2 games at home if they're needed, which is, again, Jordan and I, you and I can argue about this until the cows go home, but there's no way that the freaking Dodgers should be playing away games in games 6 and 7 because they're the better team. But you and I can argue about that. Some other podcasts will go long. Couple rundowns, Jordan. Let's run down the rest of the ALCS and NLCS games schedule, and then we will get into the World Series, which starts Tuesday, October 26th, which is next week. Wow. So a week after you're listening to this episode.
Yeah, so we'll have an episode out next Tuesday morning, which will be previewing the World Series. That's crazy.
That'd be wild. So Monday, October 18th, which is today, you are currently watching the Red Sox versus the Astros. Jordan, what is going on in the Red Sox-Astros game?
It is currently in the top of the second inning, 2 outs, 2-1 count on Tucker with Rodriguez pitching. He's on 27 pitches right now. 0-0.
Nice, 0-0. All right, so we won't really know. We don't have an advantage here of knowing who's going to pull that one out and go ahead in the series 2-1. That's at Fenway. The next 3 games are at Fenway. Tuesday, October 19th, Dodgers versus Braves. Sorry, that ALCS game's on FS1 if you're not watching it. NLCS Game 3, Dodgers versus the Braves in LA at 5:08 Eastern Time on TBS. ALCS Game 4, Red Sox versus the Astros, is tomorrow at 8:08 p.m. on FS1. Wednesday, October 20th, ALCS Game 5, Red Sox versus the Astros at Fenway at 5:08 on FS1. NLCS Game 4, Dodgers versus Braves, 8:08 on TBS. Thursday, October 21st, NLCS Game 5, if necessary, 8:08, Dodgers Braves, TBS. Friday, October 22nd, ALCS Game 6, if necessary, Astros versus the Red Sox at 8:08 on FS1. And then Saturday, we got to change here. NLCS Game 6, Dodgers and Braves. That'll be at 5:08 and will be in Atlanta if needed on TBS. ALCS Game 7 if necessary, hopefully if necessary. Astros versus Red Sox, 8:08 on Big Fox and FS1, as Jordan would say. And then Sunday, October 24th, NLCS Game 7 if necessary. Braves, Dodgers, 7:38 p.m. on Big TBS. World Series starting next week on Big Fox, 26th, 27th, 29th, 30th, 31st, 2nd, and 3rd. Those last 3 dates, if necessary. Jordan, do you have anything else that you want to add before we kind of close this one out? I know it went a little long, but we had some interesting headlines.
We are currently in the bottom of the second now. We're going to the bottom of the second. Still nothing. And that's all I really have to add. So I say Braves, Astros. Any last pick for you, Logan, before we get to the World Series?
I'm going Braves, Astros as well, Jordan. Who do you have winning? Oh, never mind. We'll discuss that later on. That's a spoiler, cliffhanger. So Jordan's deemed both of them champions, and next week I'll tell you why none of them will win the champions and why they'll cancel the season. No, I'm kidding. Look forward to our picks next week. Again, that episode will drop on Tuesday morning. If you have any comments or you want to shoot us any of your complaints, hit us up on Twitter. Rate us on Apple Podcast. You can find us at Extra Innings Baseball Show on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at Extra Innings Show and on Instagram, Extra Innings Baseball Show. I am your host, Logan Stump, and this has been Jordan Weekend. Tomorrow it will be Jordan Weekend, and I guess the rest of the time will be Jordan Weekend. So hope you all have a great night.
We're all Jordan Weekend. Yeah.
You're all Jordan Weekend. And go Braves and Astros.
The Extra Innings Baseball Show is hosted by Logan Stump. edited and produced by Jordan Wiegand. And we hope that everybody enjoys us talking some baseball in this MLB 2022 season that is upcoming. Thank you.